up, her face. Up, poker face. Up, her face.
Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Random Questions here live from the LAPC. We're sitting down with Andy Duke in the middle of the inaugural 10K horse at the LAPC.
It's about the end of the inaugural 10K horse for me, momentarily.
Oh, are we a little bit short?
I'm a little bit short on chips.
Yeah, short. So what have you thought of it so far? Structure, that kind of thing, the new Matt Savage version of the LAPC?
Matt Savage's structures are always great. He's the one who started really at the World Series of Poker main event, which has such an amazing structure. He's really the one who started adding in all those levels. So, the classic tournament structure for any World Series event, which was at the time the only major tournaments, right, was 2-4, 3-6, 4-8, 6-12, 8-6. I mean, it was just like these at least 50% jumps, every round. And he started adding in like that 255. The 500 and 1,000 was a level that he started adding in, and like getting, really smoothing the structure out to give more play, and really just made sure that the World Series of Poker main event had just like every single level when he was running it. And you're seeing in this horse, you're seeing the same kind of thing. It's just really, really smooth, flat structure.
Are you sticking around for the heads up and the main event?
I'm not going to play the heads up because heads up actually isn't my forte.
Right.
So, I play the NBC heads up challenge because they add money to the prize pool, and I know that I'm a favorite to that because they're actually adding equity. But and also the other thing with that is that they do invite like some celebrities and some people who are not there because they're poker players, right? So it's a much better equity situation. In something like this, you're really going to get people who are in reality the best no limit heads up players in the world, and I wouldn't include myself in that group, so I don't see any reason to pony up. I don't do anything in poker that's kind of ego driven. I really try to play by where I think that I have good equity. So
speaking of mixing in with celebrities and doing a few things, the Ante Up for Africa.
Yep.
We've got there now going into its third year.
Yes,
with the World
I'm so
Series.
excited. So we've got our date. It's July 2nd.
Nice.
And we're ready to go. It's going to hopefully be bigger and better than ever. And we have a huge thing that we've just found out, which is that I'm pretty sure that this is short, that it's going to be filmed. So it's always been like a little tiny package sort of thrown in among the World Series of coverage. And this year I think we're going to get like a full episode, which
Don
will be
Cheadle
amazing.
is going to be co-hosting it again?
Don Cheadle always is co-hosting it, since it's me, Don, and Norman Epstein. People don't know Norman Epstein because he's just the guy who does all the work, he's amazing. And he's someone who was good friends with Don, and then I also knew him. He actually had come to one of me and my brother's poker camps.
Oh, okay.
And then we sort of became friends through Don and that kind of thing, and then the three of us formed the organization, and it's still just the three of us. We try to keep it really, really small, because we don't want to, we really just want the money to go where it's supposed to go, and we don't want to get into this big administration and organization and all this stuff where you end up chewing up a lot of the money. And we try to stay away as much as we can from outside fundraisers. We've actually had a very bad experience with one kind of running off with money and that kind of stuff, which is...
So what is the Ante Up for Africa turn back been? In other words, when I say that, I mean, how much is going in is coming back out.
100%, because Don and me and Norman have always just been like, whose turn is it to write a check? So this year, our only expense is the publicist. So we hired a publicist because we felt like our return on investment would be huge in terms of having someone who can arrange things like get a private jet to sponsor or get sponsorship money and that kind of stuff. And she's done a really good job. So that's like basically, so at this point of all the money that's donated, 20,000 goes away.
Right.
Something like that. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's tiny compared to we've done in 2 years basically. So we're going into the beginning of our third year with our first event on July 2nd, and we've done about $2.5 million or so. So at this point, our expenses are somewhere in the low 5 figures.
Well, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, well, but that was kind of the goal of it. That's a horrible buzz, isn't it?
Something like some kind of weird whistle.
Yeah.
We apologize to anyone watching this film suddenly getting a headache.
Right.
We don't have any damn idea what that noise is either.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very bad squeaky wheel.
Yeah, so that was just kind of the goal of it. It was like we just really wanted to do some good in an area that we felt didn't get any attention. And it's really interesting. I mean, I know that like right now people are, obviously the economic situation in America is really bad.
Right.
And, there's a lot of focus on what's going on here. And, I definitely feel the effects of it. Everybody's feeling, some more than others. Obviously, I don't feel it as much as other people. And I know that people are really focused on this country in terms of what's going on. But really, when you compare whatever problems we're having in terms of our economy to being in a refugee camp with literally there is no job to get. You're trying to get clean water, and whatever's happening in America, the people who have lost their jobs or whatever, they're not worrying about things like how do I get clean water, how do I get shelter, how do I live, how is my child not going to die from malnutrition, that kind of thing. So, our problems really are very high class problems in America, and I'm not saying that I really try to do stuff for here too. But I hope that we don't, just because of the economic crisis, we don't become too inwardly focused, because really in terms of the whole like political stability and economic stability of the world, the fewer refugees there are in the world, the better off all of us are,
exactly.
Including America. And that's just sort of from a selfish perspective. Like, we're all better off the fewer refugees there are in the world. And right now, just so you know, there's over 40 million refugees in the world. Yeah. So it's pretty sick. I think the number is almost 43 million. It's somewhere 42 point something. So that's outside of the just sort of humanitarian thing of these people are living something that we couldn't even fathom, even in the recession or depression, depending on who you are, right, that we're experiencing right now here.
It's hard to come off a serious topic like that and go into the questions.
Which is okay. No, but it's okay, because you need to, you need to enjoy life too while you're.
I'm just glad to see that. Now you're a person who's a lightning rod for some controversy and action. You've got a pretty famous family out here in the world of poker and that sort of thing. So the one question I would have is, which family member just drives you the most nuts?
There's such a big.
Wow, not just one today. We can rank
for different
them top
reasons.
3.
I mean, okay, so obviously, my mom drives me nuts because my mom drives every girl nuts, right? I mean, by the way, I love my mom. My mom is like the coolest lady, but she drives me completely nuts. I think she drives my brother nuts too, but that's what mom's jobs are. I have no doubt that I'm driving my children nuts too. And then my dad drives me completely nuts too. I love him, by the way. He's wonderful, but he drives me totally nuts. He's always talking about he likes to tell really bad puns and really bad puns.
Really,
like,
just
puns that only a 70-year-old man could tell,
It's not that punny.
I would say actually that, Howard doesn't really drive me nuts. I think that may be because Howard and I have spent so much time as adults, being adults together, that I don't think that the stuff that normally, like when you obviously family members always drive each other nuts. I think partly because you have so much leeway in how you act toward a family member because they have to love you no matter what. That's my theory. But I think that Howard and I have sort of come out of that because we've spent our whole adult lives like doing the same career and like interacting with each other as adults. So I think that we're just sort of friends now. So.
I think you kind of reintroduce yourself to siblings once you've all gone out and got
right, and so like with my sister, she lives on the other coast and this kind of thing, so she just still drives me nuts like a little sister will, right? Because little sisters always drive you nuts. So she's still like my little sister driving me nuts, So.
Now we're going to skip to the next one here. We're going to get through a few because I think we're getting warmed up for the tournament here. And I want to make sure you got a chance to get through it here. Okay. When was the last time you yelled at somebody?
Last night.
Last night. Why?
I completely went nuts at Mike Matusow. Do I need to say why?
If you want.
No, he's Mike Matusow, right?
Okay.
By the way, I sent at like 1:30 in the morning. I sent him a voicemail saying I overreacted, but you should really examine your own behavior. But I did apologize to him that I overreacted. He made, in my opinion, a really retarded play instead. And the only reason why I mentioned it to him, because I like people making retarded. It wasn't against me, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
But the only reason why I mentioned it to him, because normally I would keep that kind of thing to myself, is because I was sitting next to Mike the whole day, so of course I was hearing about what a great player he was and what idiots everybody else in the world are. And so he made a play that was really idiotic, and so I just was like, yeah, you're the greatest player in the world. This was at the end of the night. And he like stood up and like pushed his chair back and was like, oh yeah, let's bet $5,000. Barry Greenstein's over there. We'll go. And I hate that BS. It's like you're just making a joke, and someone turns it into this bullshit, like, literally, like I felt like he was taking a ruler out to measure his penis against mine. And I actually said to him, I'm not going to get into a penis measuring contest because I don't have a dick. I think I said that to him. Somewhere in the middle of the argument. But I just I just can't stand it. Something that I've never liked is that whole like, oh yeah, let's put 5,000 on it, da 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 da.
It's up for
like,
rolls.
Whatever, I was just making a comment. Like, it was funny because I've been sitting here for literally 10 hours listening to you talk about how great you are.
Right.
So anyway, I got really pissed off and I said things that I shouldn't have said. Because I just overreact. I think it was just the reaction from like the whole day, you know?
It's a long day.
Kind of coming at him. So, but anyway, then he came up to me later. He's like, that was so out of line. All I did was look at you and say, let's bet. And I was like, and anybody who knows Mike's never used that tone in his whole life. Like, I don't think, even when he's just like, let's go to dinner, I think he's not even using that tone. I think he's like, let's go to dinner, not one of those idiotic places. I'll choose the best dinner place. he was literally like, let's bet. Like, why did you react to just let's bet?
Prim Polly manners right there.
Yeah, I did overreact. I really overreacted. But to be fair,
it was a little on that.
He did, it wasn't like I overreacted to let's bet.
Coming back to the other side now, last night, we're getting out of here, it's 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And you, Howard, Eric Seidel, and your husband were looking for...
We went to Fred 62.
Where the hell is that? You're in the middle of Commerce, but let me set this up for people at home who don't know this. We're in the middle of Commerce, it's 3 in the morning, and they're looking for a very specific meal that fits your dietary needs.
Right.
Howard's dietary needs, and everybody can make everybody happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, so there's a place in Los Feliz, because I live in LA actually. No. So the thing was, they wanted to go to Little Tokyo, and first of all, I don't think there would have been anything open there, and second of all, I couldn't eat anything there because I'm allergic to soy and sesame. So that makes Asian food really hard, right? Yeah. So I suggested Fred 62, which is in Los Feliz, which is great, and it's a coffee shop that's open 24 hours a day. That, interestingly enough, it started in the 1990s, but it was the Beastie Boys restaurant.
Really?
I don't know if it's still owned by them, but it was started them. I guess that one of the people in the Beastie Boys was named Fred, and he was born in 1962.
So Fred 62.
Yeah.
There you go.
So anyway, it's like a really good diner food, but they also have a little bit of an Asian menu, which is actually really good.
Yeah.
So because I knew that they wanted Asian, so Howard had like a little Asian bowl thing. I had a waffle.
Waffle. 3 in the morning waffles are universal.
Exactly.
What is possibly the best food at 3 in the morning?
Well, I think pancakes are better, but I had pancakes last time I went there, so I wanted to try the waffle. Honestly, I should have the pancakes.
Better pancakes than Fred 62?
Yeah, I think pancakes are definitely the best 3 in the morning food.
Yeah. I had a place that did corn dogs, but I think, at the end of the day, breakfast at 3 in the morning.
Corn dogs will sit in your stomach when you're sleeping, though. Yeah. I'll tell you, if you go to Fred 62, I didn't have these, but there's some, I don't usually have them because they're so unhealthy, but there's something called the Hunka Hunka Burn and Love pancake, which is peanut butter, chocolate chip, and banana pancakes.
The Elvis Special.
That's right.
Are they deep fried?
No, they
I come from Elvis country. You get a peanut butter and banana on a hoagie, like French bread.
Right, and they deep fry the
whole
Snickers and the Twinkies and stuff there, right?
Yeah, well, that's a Texas thing.
I think I saw the deep fried. They do deep fried Snickers, right? Yeah. It's like 2,800 calories or something. I saw it somewhere online.
Well, when they bread it and roll it up and do everything else, in the end of the day, frying it just makes it fattier of the calories it has in it. But
I think it's almost 3,000 calories in that little deep fried. I mean, and also, by the way, I can't imagine you're not sick after you eat that.
Apparently, very tasty at the end of the day.
Ew.
All right. So, we're about to get wrapped up and everything's going on. I want to thank you for stopping by and providing us with some pretty entertaining stories.
Those weren't very random questions.
Well, no, we got off on kind of the story tangent. If you want some of the random ones, we'll throw those in.
Ask me one random one.
The one random one is, who is the worst boss you ever had?
I haven't ever had a boss.
Okay,
I mean, I did. You know what? I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, but my boss there was really nice. When I was a teenager, I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then in college, I worked as a research assistant, but she was really nice, and then ever since then, I played poker. I've never had a boss.
That's fair enough. What's the most original, weirdest thing you've ever done on a date, or you've had done to you on a date?
I guess I'm not that weird.
And this is a question for Mike, because I've heard the answer to this, and I won't even put it on film. But what's the biggest faux pas that's ever happened to you on a date? Just just the weirdest social
Oh
situation.
God, you know, I
like
saw Mike's date with Kathy Griffin.
Yes.
Did you see that on the TV?
I saw that, yeah.
That was like one big faux pas after faux pas after faux pas after faux pas after faux pas. What's the biggest faux pas on a date?
That it's either been done to you, or that a guy's done to you, or you've done to a guy.
Do you know what the thing is that's really weird? Is I can't, I mean, I think of a date as like you're going out with someone who you don't really know.
Right. You're
And
getting to know
do you
people.
want to know something really weird? I've only done that like twice in my life. Because I've always like been friends with people, and then we end up.
You're a tight social circle
Right.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went out on a date one date after I got divorced, which was very brief, and there were no faux pas on it. I just wasn't ready to date. And then the next date I went on, which was then a year and a half after I got divorced, so was with Joe. And it was a wonderful date, and there were no faux pas, and he was absolutely wonderful and lovely, and we've been together ever since. And by the way, our anniversary is this weekend.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, 4 years.
Now, if he was smart, he would have dated you on Valentine's Day. I find it's much easier to remember everything.
You know, that's true. But I wasn't actually, you know, it was really funny. This is a random thing.
Okay.
So during 4 years ago, when this tournament was going on, I was in town for, you know, whatever, it was like, whatever tournament it was. And my agent called me up. And he was on a really, really bad blind date. He's not my agent anymore now, I have a different person. But at the time, he was on a very bad blind date. And I'm going to save who it was for who, because it actually relates to something I just did. So remind to ask me later on this year who the date was with, because it will be very funny in light of some other stuff.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm going to withhold it right now.
All right.
So a little teaser. So anyway, he was on a very, very bad blind date, and it was raining out. It was like 4 years ago, February in LA was just like pouring. And at this point, I lived in Portland. So he was like, you have to come down to this club called National, right, to block me on this date. I was like, I'm not going to come down in the pouring rain to block you on a date. He's like, no, you have to. So I'm like, fine. I said, I'm not coming. He says, but the date is with so-and-so. I'm like, oh my God, I'll be right there. Because I realized that this really must be the worst date ever.
Okay.
So I go running down, and he literally sits me in between this person and him like the whole night. That night I met my manager, by the way, which is interesting. His name's Glenn Carson. He's great. That was the first thing that happened, which was weird. And I'm not even supposed to be down there. But then he's like, you know, he's looking around for ways to get away. So he sees this guy over in the corner of the club, and he's like, hey, I want you to meet this guy. Like, come with me. Like, really not. I'm not sure because he wanted me to really, just because he wanted to get away. So I go over, and it's Joe. So Joe and I start talking. So Joe and I start talking, and I'm not that interested because I'm still like,
you were randomly introduced to Joe
right
in the bar corner trying to get away from somebody else's blind date.
Right. So anyway, but that was 4 years ago. Now, because I got in the dispute with the WPT, I haven't been back to this tournament since then. So this is the first time that I've been back. So I texted Joe yesterday when I walked into this room because I had this wave of like nostalgia. I was like, baby, this is the first time I've been here. I realized since we met. So anyway, but the thing was, so I met him right before Valentine's Day. And he wanted to give me his number, and I was like, no, I'll lose your number. Because in the middle of the conversation where I wasn't very interested, he happened to mention that he had written a Spider-Man comic. And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Maybe you are someone. Because, you know, I was like, after I got divorced, I was very much like, I'm just going to focus on my kids.
Right.
So I wasn't really looking. And so we were just sort of, but when he mentioned the Spider-Man thing, he's like, can I give you my number? I'm like, no, let me give you yours, because I'll lose yours.
Yeah.
So I give him my number, and I was like, look, I'm going back to Portland. I'm going to be back for the championship, right? I'm going to be back in like 10 days. You know, call me. So in between was Valentine's Day, so that's why.
There you go.
Yeah.
Easy enough. Now, is Joe in the comic book industry now?
No, he just wrote the one.
Are you a fan of the comic book industry?
I
Do you
just
have
thought
a
it was
favorite
really
comic
cool.
book hero?
I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was really cool that he had written a Spider-Man comic. I thought, I've never met anybody who wrote a Spider-Man. But right now, I loved Iron Man. And you know, Don just is taking over Terrence Howard's role.
That should be good. I'm looking forward to more Don Cheadle in any damn thing we can get him.
Yeah, but I'm so excited. Yeah, I thought Iron Man was so good. I thought it was like one of the best superhero movies ever. So I was very excited because Don now took that role over, so I'm going to get to go see Don in it now.
That's beautiful. All right.
So I gave you some good random date stuff, even though I couldn't answer your question.
It's been some good random stuff. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I'm going to
see you again.